How to Make a Futuristic Gauntlet by David J. Guyton, author of the Legend of Reason book series. This gauntlet's made in 22 gauge stainless steel. You can also use 20 gauge stainless steel, but if you go any higher than that, you're not going to be able to cut it very easily with hand tools. Other metals will be a little easier, and you can also use plastic or other materials to make it as well. These are the tools I use to make it. These are bullnose snips or bulldog snips. They make cutting stainless steel a little easier. This is called a seamer or a brake. You can find this in the gutter section of a home improvement store. This is a ball peen hammer. I use the rounded side mostly. This is a body hammer for doing body work on cars. Note that it's got a very flat surface, which is very important. This is 5-minute epoxy. It's a 2-part glue that's very strong, and I use it to glue a lot of the parts onto the glove. This is craft foam I got from a craft store. This is a little spring you'll need. You also need some nuts and bolts, very small. These you'll see later. I use those as an anvil to shape things. I also have a big anvil, which you won't need, but it's very handy to have. If you don't have an anvil, you can use a dumbbell or other weight. You can use this tutorial to make any gauntlet you like, but if you want to make this exact gauntlet, you need to download the template, which can be found at the link directly under the video. Use the snips to cut out your parts after you trace them onto metal. Then grind your parts for a better shape. You can also use a file to fine-tune them. Here's most of the parts cut out on the table. This glove is an unlined leather police glove. It's very important to get that kind. I have pretty normal size hands, about 3.5 inches across. I used extra large. I'm using the vise to bend these parts and with nice hard edges. I'm also rounding these edges a little bit. You can do that with a piece of copper pipe or anything round like this. I also went to the trouble to shape pretty much all the pieces. I used an edge to make the metal look like it was about twice as thick as it really is. You can skip this step, but I think it makes it look a lot more professional. Here I'm bending the thumb guard, the very last piece of the thumb. Here I'm using the copper pipe to bend the vambrace part of the gauntlet. You can see, just go slowly and you can make a nice even curves. I'm folding over the edge of the vambrace for a more uniformed edge. You can skip this part if you want, just by cutting it off instead of bending it over. You can see how perfect the edge is if you do this. Here I'm using a piece of a nail to make some rivets. And these hinges are just bought from a store. I should have got silver, but I can only find brass that were small enough. Here's the vambrace, hinged. This is the hand shield. Note that I've got some nuts and bolts here. Use 2 nuts to make tighten them against themselves. This is a little spring you'll need later on. It will attach to this corresponding hole in the van brace. I also use the craft foam to sort of make bumpers and make this piece a little heavier. Just glue it on and then cut it off after. I also did one on the inside to cover up the hole there when you're looking at it from the top. Here I'm rounding one of the hand parts. Just use your rounded edge, some kind of pipe you have, and just hammer against it lightly, and you'll be able to shape your parts. All of these parts will be shaped for your hand, so you have to sort of fit them against the glove as you go. This is the riser. It's actually a pretty hard piece to get right. You really have to work on this for a while to get the curve to fit right on the van brace. This is the internal structure that holds the riser onto the van brace. Also a hard piece, but you can do it. Here I use little bolts, nuts and bolts, to attach it to attach the parts together. This is a little cap I made on top to make it a little neater. These little prongs stick through into the van brace to attach there. Here I've got roofing nails I use to make rivets, to make a little piece of an old belt attached to the glove, so that the glove parts can eventually attach to the arm guard parts. This is one of the finger plates. I'm using the seamer to make a nice clean bend. If you use an anvil or some hard surface, it makes it a little easier to make a perfect hard bend. Otherwise, you're going to get like a rounded sort of edge. You don't want that. Here I'm shaping the part a little bit further. I'm rounding the bottom edges around into sort of a ring shape. And then I also sort of went to the trouble to make a little bit more three-dimensional look to it by hammering the edges just on the front and back sides. This is one of the fingertips. Pretty complex part to make. Takes a little bit of time. You can see how I've got the two edges bent around like the other finger plates. And I'm just lightly curving the underside here before I bend it. I'm also curving the bottom edge just a little bit to match the other finger plates. Now to get the edge started at the front, just put something up there like an old chisel or something and just hammer it lightly until you get an edge started. And now you can just pound it into shape. Precision parts it's very key, so you want to get these edges as close as you can, get the gaps very small. Then gluing all the parts, that's what takes forever, because you have to hold the parts for about 10 minutes. Each individual part. Not fun. Here you can see how I attached all the parts together. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Leave your questions as comments below and I'll answer as soon as I can. Have fun with your project.